Today we're making coffee cake, but we're doing it in muffin form. So think a lighter, fluffier version of coffee cake, spiced with cinnamon and topped with a buttery streusel crumble topping. They're really easy to make, and over the years I have really refined this recipe, and I think you're going to love it as well, so let's get started. We're not going to preheat our oven yet. First thing we're going to do is get our dry ingredients combined, starting with 1 3/4 cups of all-purpose flour. And then we'll add our sugar. So you'll need a 1/2 cup of firmly packed light brown sugar, which in previous versions of this muffin that I've done, I used less brown sugar, but this really adds a nice depth, really gives you a really good flavor. We're also going to add a 1/2 cup of granulated sugar. And I think I said this bowl gets all of your dry ingredients. If you've been baking a while, you will probably know that sugar is actually considered a wet ingredient because of how it reacts when it's being baked, but for today's recipe, the sugar is going in with the other dry ingredients. We're also going to be using some cornstarch. This is 2 tablespoons of cornstarch. It is going to help really make for a nice soft muffin crumb. I really love using this ingredient in a lot of my recipes. It can really help you get that nice soft crumb because it works similar to flour in a lot of ways without drying out the batter the way flour would. Next, our leavening agents. We're starting with 2 teaspoons of baking powder, adding a 1/2 teaspoon of baking soda. For salt, we'll be doing 3/4 teaspoon of table salt. And then we're also going to add a teaspoon of ground cinnamon right into the dough or into the mixture. Let's go ahead and whisk these ingredients together. Get everything nicely combined, especially that brown sugar. Get any lumps in there broken up. Okay. Next, a separate bowl for our wet ingredients, or our wet ingredients excluding the sugar. We're starting with a 1/3 cup of a neutral cooking oil. So you could use avocado oil if it's a refined avocado oil, like chosen avocado oil works nicely, or you could use vegetable or canola oil. Add that first. This recipe does use a little bit more oil than my basic muffin recipe. It works really well for the coffee cake muffins. We also have 1/3 cup or 5 1/3 tablespoons of unsalted butter that's been melted. Pour that in with the oil. And before I go any further, I'm just going to whisk together the butter and the oil quickly, just to help cool down that butter in case it's warm at all. You don't really want to be using warm butter, especially because we're going to be adding some ingredients that might be a little bit colder, and we don't want to shock the butter and make the batter split. All right, next up I have 1 large egg. I do prefer this to be room temperature. We'll also add 1 1/2 teaspoons of vanilla extract. So some muffins can be a little bit more on the bland side. For a coffee cake muffin, I really wanted you to get, really nice vanilla flavor. I just wanted the vanilla flavor to be present. It felt appropriate with coffee cake. Go ahead and whisk these in really well, get that egg nicely broken up, and now we will add our sour cream. So previous versions I've used buttermilk. Buttermilk has many places in muffins and other recipes, but sour cream really worked nicely to give you a nice depth of flavor and keep things from being too sweet. So this is a cup of sour cream. Add that sour cream. Now bonus points to you if you do use room temperature sour cream or you let it sit out for a bit. Your batter's just going to be easier to combine if you use room temperature sour cream, but I have definitely made this with cold sour cream as well. Let's whisk this together. We'll add this to our dry ingredients. We're not going to use a whisk anymore. With quick breads or muffin batters, it's so important that you do not overmix your batter. If you overmix, you're likely to end up with muffins that are dense or dry, just not as good as they should be. So we want to preserve that nice fluffy crumb, so we're going to be really gentle, and we'll use a spatula to gently fold the ingredients together. And while we don't want to overmix, we do want to make sure that everything is well combined. We don't want any flour streaks remaining. We're just going to be gentle and fold. Now, something to know about this muffin batter is it's a pretty dry one. You are probably going to think at first that you don't have enough liquid, but you do. It's supposed to be a nice, stiff, thick batter. That helps get the texture that I was aiming for with this recipe, so don't panic if you think it's not as wet as it should be. Make sure you're scraping the bottom of the bowl to get everything well incorporated. Go any further. Okay, we are going to let this muffin batter rest. Resting is going to let things start to develop. It's going to make the batter even thicker, and it's going to just give you a muffin that rises a little bit more. These don't get super tall, but they do get a little bit of height to them. But more importantly, it's going to help give you that really nice, light, tender crumb. So I'm just going to cover this with a towel and put it to the side for, I recommend 30 minutes. But a minimum of 15. Now, if you're in a super big hurry, you don't feel like waiting, you can skip this step, but the muffins really do benefit from a little bit of resting time. Meanwhile, I will start preheating my oven to 425 degrees Fahrenheit. We want it to get nice and hot. and I will prepare the streusel topping. So first thing for the streusel, you will need 5 tablespoons of butter. Go ahead and melt that and set it aside so it can cool down some. You don't want it to be super hot. I'm using unsalted butter here, and we'll add a pinch of salt to the topping. Next, you'll need 1 cup of all-purpose flour. Just add this to a mixing bowl. And I make a streusel that's a nice blend of granulated and brown sugar. So it's a 1/3 cup of granulated sugar and 1/3 cup of firmly packed light brown sugar. And just firmly packing it is going to make it easier to mix, whether you are using cup measurements or you're using a scale to measure it. I do include metric measurements for all of the ingredients in the description where I have the full recipe as well as a link to the printable recipe. Now I wanted a nice subtle cinnamon flavor, so another teaspoon of cinnamon goes in the topping, followed by just a 1/4 teaspoon of table salt. We'll stir everything together until these ingredients are nicely incorporated. Fork's not the best tool for this step, but it's what I'll need for the next step, so we're going to make it work. So once your butter is not warm to the touch, like if you touch the bottom of the bowl, we can go ahead and drizzle this over our other ingredients. Get all that butter out here. No butter left behind. Don't waste butter around here. And we're not going to like stir vigorously or else you're just going to make a paste. We're going to just toss the ingredients together with our fork. So a lot of streusel recipes will use a pastry cutter and cold butter, and that's fine. I personally think it's annoying to do, and I don't like using a pastry cutter. So this is my preferred method, and I think it just works faster and better and easier, and it makes the streusel a bit more buttery flavorful, in my opinion. So you don't want to go too far. You just want to make sure that flour is mostly absorbed. There are no dry ingredients sitting on the bottom. We're just clawing and tossing, but don't go too far or you will make a paste, and that's no good. Okay, let's make a little bit of space here. You are going to bake these muffins in a 12-count muffin tin. I recommend lining them with paper liners. That's going to be your best bet for easily removing them. And let's grab our batter. This has been sitting for almost 30 minutes now. We'll just evenly divide this into the muffin tin. And you can see when you scoop into it, this batter seems pretty thick and airy. And letting it rest really helps with that. And it might look a little different than other batters you've made in the past. That is by design. Just using my 1½ tablespoon scoop. I'm clearly using more than 1½ tablespoons, and I'll go back again and add more as needed. I love these little lever scoops. And resting the batter is the same idea as resting a pancake batter, just really helps get you that nice, fluffier texture. And don't worry if the batter doesn't settle nicely into the muffin liners. As it bakes, it'll settle. It'll all be fine. Just do your best to divide the batter evenly, which I'm not always great at doing. Okay, now our streusel, we are just going to evenly divide this over the muffins. Just take a nice handful. And if the batter's mounded, you can sort of flatten it a bit while you're doing this, just to make it easier to put the streusel on top. And you can see it makes a bit of a mess, so I'm just going around and putting that streusel on the muffins where it belongs, so it's not just getting wasted on the muffin tin, on the sides of the muffin tin. We will use all of this streusel. Okay, so something I like to do when I'm baking my muffins is bake on 2 temperatures. We're going to start with our nice hot oven at 425 degrees Fahrenheit. You will be baking these in the center rack, and you're going to set your timer for 8 minutes. After 8 minutes, do not open the oven door, but turn your oven temperature down to 350 degrees Fahrenheit. Now set your timer again for 12 minutes. Sometimes these muffins take a little bit longer. They could take 13, 14, even 15 minutes, but check them at 12 minutes. You'll notice they're a nice light golden brown on top, and you're going to want to use the toothpick test. Just insert a toothpick into the center of a muffin. It should come out clean or with a few moist crumbs. That's how you'll know they're done. So the muffins, you'll want to let them cool in their pan for like 7 minutes. But I don't like them to sit longer than that because if you ever like grabbed a muffin and the bottom was really oily or greasy, that usually happens from them sitting in the pan longer than they should. So after, like I said, 7 minutes, I like to carefully remove them to a cooling rack so they can finish cooling. That'll keep them from getting greasy. It'll also keep them from over baking from any residual heat from the pan. I don't know about you, but I'm really excited about these streusel going everywhere. So excited. And you don't have to put anything on top of these. They're great as is. But if you want to do like a dusting of powdered sugar, that works really nicely and is very like coffee cake-esque. I also like to do a really simple glaze with just a cup of, about a cup of powdered sugar. And then I'll add a little bit of milk, like 2 to 3 tablespoons is usually all I need. Just whisk it together until it ribbons off of the whisk. If you want to add like a tiny bit of vanilla, like an 1/8 to a 1/4 teaspoon, you can, but I usually don't. I think these work really well without added vanilla, and it's easy to accidentally overdo it and then make things a little too sweet. We're making a mess here today. Let's see, that looks pretty good. Could be a little smoother. Okay, didn't even need the full 2 tablespoons. And just drizzle these over your muffins. If you want to make cleanup easier for yourself, put a piece of wax paper under your muffins, but you don't have to clean up your counter like I'm going to have to do. It's funny, Nikki's gonna have to do it. I'm super impatient when it comes to eating anything I've baked, but it really is a good idea to let the icing solidify before you dig in, because it actually comes off as a little bit too sweet if you eat it before it's dried. The texture is kind of nice when it's dried as well. So try to have a little bit of patience. I'm really excited for you to try these. I love them. Like I said, I've been perfecting them over the past few years, so I hope you love them as well. If you try them, let me know what you think. I really do always love hearing from you. There you go. It's solidified enough. Let's take a look at that crumb. Oh, these are so good. This is gonna be messy. Look at that. These are so good. Is this my favorite muffin? This might be my favorite muffin. Oh, that guy in. I'm so smooth. I hope we caught you laughing at me on camera. What am I doing? I tried to pour it outside of the bowl. Can you tell I didn't sleep well last night? Look, that made up for the vanilla that I over poured. Let's take credit for Nikki's cleaning. That's for laughing at me earlier.